It's a busy week for 8th District Congressman Mike Gallagher. He's in the midst of an annual district tour, meeting with the community and business leaders. He joins us now in the studio along with Carr, an FCC commissioner. And good morning to both of you. Thanks for coming here.
It's great to be with you.
Yeah, good to be here. Thank you.
Commissioner, I want to start with you because I want to talk a little bit about rural broadband. It's very important to people. How does the FCC play a part in this?
Yeah, thanks so much. You know, Congressman Gallagher is doing some of the most consequential work back in Washington, and I'm really pleased that he's invited me here to be with him on this community tour. And rural broadband is one of the most important things. I mean, connectivity is so vital, whether it's educating our kids, whether it's precision agriculture. So we're making progress, but we're not raising the mission accomplished flag. So me being here is really important to help me understand what policies do we need to put in place back in D.C. so that everybody in the Badger State gets high-speed connectivity.
And Congressman, do we have the money here in Wisconsin for that expansion?
We do. We're in good fiscal shape here. The question is, do we use those dollars smartly? Do we invest it in the right way? Are there creative partnerships between local, state, and federal entities that will make the investments that will last over the course of the next decade, if not 2 decades? Can we get creative in certain areas, very rural areas where laying fiber doesn't make sense, potentially experimenting with things like Starlink? So that's why the commissioner's here. We're really glad to have him. I will confess, I'm not super excited about climbing a very tall cell tower today, but he dared me and I accepted, so we'll see if I survive this.
Yeah, I saw that. That was on your agenda here. Where's it? How high up are you going to go, Commissioner?
Yeah, we're going to climb a cell tower not too far from here. I think there's nothing that is better than getting outside of Washington, D.C. and actually meeting with the women and men that are building out this internet infrastructure. And whenever I do these events, you always learn something. You never know exactly what it is that you're going to learn. But I think it's great to get firsthand experience with these tower climbers because, frankly, we also have to expand the workforce in this country. If we're going to complete our 5G build, we need to add thousands of new tower climbing jobs. They're good-paying jobs, and you can learn them about 8 to 12 weeks of trade school. You can get a good-paying job. So it'd be good to be with those tower crews and help highlight the really important work that they're doing.
Congressman, you've been a critic of TikTok. You've said you want to ban the app. Tell us why you want to do that.
Well, first I have to recognize the work of Commissioner Carr. He's been a true thought leader on this issue in terms of exposing the threat posed by TikTok. To me, it comes down to basic ownership and control of the algorithm. TikTok is owned by a company called ByteDance. ByteDance is effectively a subsidiary of the Chinese Communist Party. And if you have the Chinese Communist Party controlling what is on the path to becoming the dominant media platform in America, that poses all sorts of national security problems. And it's not just the threat of them being able to track your location, your activity. It's controlling the information you receive on a daily basis, to say nothing of the fact that the app is incredibly addictive. The commissioner has called it digital fentanyl, both because of its highly addictive nature, but also because it can ultimately be traced back to China. So that's the issue. We do not want to allow the CCP to dominate what information we consume here in America. They could weaponize that dominance to pit Americans against Americans. That's a recipe for chaos.
So would you like to see it off the app stores?
I would, or we can force a sale to an American entity. Control of the algorithm is really the core of the issue. The Trump administration tried to force a sale. It ran into a legal buzzsaw. It's complicated, but there are ways I think we can do this. So either a ban or a forced sale would be my preferred outcome.
You know, we've been hearing a lot. We had a story earlier on about AM radio and the fact that some car makers were not putting AM radios in their cars or thinking about not putting them in their cars. Commissioner, I turn to you because I grew up with AM radio. I was on an AM radio station. But how is the importance now compared to what it was back in the 80s and 70s and 60s?
Yeah, look, I think if you look at AM radio, it's the heartbeat of so many communities, particularly rural communities that rely on it, whether it's for emergency alerts. We have a nationwide alerting system that we administer at the FCC. AM radio is one of the backbones of that system. So I think it's a mistake for electric vehicle manufacturers to not put AM in there. They claim there's an interference issue, but actually that can be overcome with very, very inexpensive shielding. And so I'd like to see an outcome here where AM radio stays in EVs.
And Congressman Gallagher, what do you think about the AM radio issue?
I agree with that. We had a roundtable with a bunch of people in the industry affected by that. We're going to have a roundtable after this. So to me, there's got to be a common sense solution or a compromise position here, particularly for the emergency notification system that the commissioner talked about. So I'm confident we can get there. I understand both sides have strong feelings, but all the more reason that it's good to have the commissioner here to educate us and figure out what the right role for the federal entities and the state entities and the locals are.
And real quick, you're on your district tour so far. What have you heard from your constituents?
Well, it's interesting. I think the thing we've heard consistently, and it predates this district tour across the board, it relates to the workforce issue that the commissioner mentioned. I mean, we have amazing businesses here. As you know, in Northeast Wisconsin, we're still a manufacturing powerhouse. but a lot of businesses just can't find human beings that are willing to show up to work, can pass a drug test. And so solving that workforce crisis is really, I think, our biggest economic challenge here in Northeast Wisconsin. How do we make Northeast Wisconsin a place where, the best place to raise a family, where you work hard every single day, because there are jobs available, good paying jobs. And so that workforce issue is the thing we continually hear from in businesses in the local area.
Well, thank you both for stopping by, and good luck on climbing that tower.
Thanks so much.
Kind of explain a little bit why you brought FCC chair here to Greenbay, and kind of what's the subject that's bringing you both here.
Well, first of all, he dared me to climb a tower, and I couldn't back down from the dare. And Commissioner Carr goes all over the country and does these car climbs, so I'm interested in doing that. I'm a little bit nervous about it, but we're going to do that. But also just to kind of get a sense of the key issues. Obviously, rural broadband is incredibly important to Northeast Wisconsinites. There's a variety of issues where the FCC has a massive impact on the day-to-day lives of Northeast Wisconsinites. So the overall effort is to connect what's happening at the local level with what's happening at the state level, with what's happening at the federal level. And so we're really glad to have Commissioner Carr here. He's a true expert, not just on the inner workings of all things communications, but on key national security issues like TikTok and the pernicious and potentially destructive role that TikTok is playing here in America. So we're really excited to have him here and really excited to show him Greenbay and all of Northeast Wisconsin.
You talk about the tower dare. Are you serious, or are you just toying with us there?
We're going to climb up a super tall tower in about a half hour now. So I'm hoping, don't tell my wife that this is happening, by the way. I have no idea if there will be some sort of safety protocols, but he's done like multiple thousand feet tower, so I'm hoping we get the smaller tower today, but again, I couldn't back down from the dare.
Commissioner Carr, first of all, welcome to Northeast Wisconsin. So what tower are you taking Congressman to so he can take you up on your dare?
Yeah, well, it's great to be here in Wisconsin. It's the first time I've had the chance to visit the Badger State, being at the FCC, and the work that we do at the FCC is so important to everyone that lives here in Wisconsin. So I was very pleased when Congressman Gallagher invited me to come out here to the district as part of his tour and learn about the work we still have to do to finish bridging the digital divide. As you noted, some of that work involves real infrastructure work. America's tower crews are out there getting the toughest jobs done. They're sort of the unsung heroes of broadband builds, and so the congressman and I are going to get a chance to join a crew in a little bit here and climb a tower and see firsthand the work that it takes. And visits like that really help inform our work back in D.C. so we can get the regulations right so that hardworking tower crews can continue to finish this country's 5G build.
Okay, part of the 5G build, of course, is getting the dollars out there. There's certainly been grants to communities, to different projects there. Will we see any more of those in the not-too-distant future, hopefully?
Yeah, we're in a pretty interesting spot. There was an estimate at one point a couple years ago that it would take $80 billion to finish bridging the digital divide in this country. If you step back right now, we've allocated across a number of federal agencies almost $800 billion that could be used on broadband infrastructure. So the challenge right now is no longer funding. The challenge is the policies. And so we have to get the policies right. And that means making sure that we're focused not just on urban centers, but suburban and rural America as well. You look at precision agriculture right now, the average cornfield, you can pull enough data to account for 18 gigabits worth of data off of the average cornfield. That's 28 times the size of 28 libraries of Congress effectively in terms of data. So we have to have massive connectivity across rural areas. And that's one of the things that I'm here to learn with the congressman is where can we continue to focus so that we deliver on this promise of making affordable internet available to every American.
And of course then, near and dear to our heart, we're on the AM dial there, and there's been some talk there about some automakers there looking to purge AM completely out of cars. Does it still have a future there? Not just in cars, but overall, and what can be done to improve it through maybe HD, making that required for AM?
Yeah, look, I'm a big proponent of making sure that AM stays as a vital medium of communications. AM radio is the heartbeat of so many communities, particularly rural communities. So I was disappointed when I heard that electric vehicle makers were not going to include AM radio in their vehicles. I think that's a mistake. I think there's a lot of paths forward we can take to make sure that AM stays in EVs, and we've seen some good progress towards that recently with auto manufacturers saying that they are in fact going to include it, at least in the short run. So I think that's good progress.
What about maybe going with HD? Because let's face it, in the beginning with television, it was VHF, and then had to come out there and say, okay, new sets have to have UHF. Could it come to that? Has there been the demand or the thought that, hey, maybe it could make the AM properties a little bit more valuable because HD signals may reduce it, but also you're going to get clear signals?
Yeah, there's a lot of steps we're doing. I mean, AM is facing a lot of different technological hurdles right now. To some extent, we're allowing AM stations to use FM translator. The issue you're talking about as well, going to digital could help. But frankly, we have to stay focused on it because it's such an important medium. AM radio, local news, it's trusted. We need that more now than ever. So I think it's incumbent on us at the FCC to make sure that AM radio continues to thrive.
Congressman made mention a little bit ago, of course, of TikTok, some of the dangers that are going there. As chair of the FCC, what's your concern? What are some approaches we need to make sure that it can rein in any potential threats?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think the work that Congressman Gallagher is doing back in Washington, D.C., chairing the committee on the CCP, is really some of the most consequential work that's taking place in D.C. And if you look at the threat that the CCP poses, it's across the board. It's buying up farmland. It's trying to get insecure gear into our telecom networks like Huawei and ZTE. And the next piece of it is TikTok. TikTok is sort of a digital version of the same type of a threat that we saw with Huawei. And the evidence is clear. They're using it for espionage. They're using it for foreign influence. And Congressman Gallagher has really stood up and said, look, we have to secure America from this threat. And that's my position as well. We either need to ban TikTok or require a genuine divestment to a company that is not ultimately going to be beholden to the CCP.
Okay, so you're talking about rural broadband. We've certainly seen some progress made in northeast Wisconsin, throughout the state for that matter. But more needs to be done. Where are we moving in that direction to try to make sure everybody has access to broadband?
I think right now it's a question of making sure that the dollars we're spending at the state level are spent smartly. And then in areas where there's less of an economic case for laying fiber, we can experiment with creative delivery systems, whether it's Starlink or something else. It's a massive economic driver. I think we have a huge opportunity, particularly post-pandemic, as people perhaps want to move out of Chicago and some of these major urban areas. Northeast Wisconsin is an obvious location given our high quality of life, given just how great it is to raise a family. But we need internet connectivity, particularly in places that aren't Green Bay or Appleton that are more rural. We absolutely need internet connectivity so somebody could work for a global company or start their own company right here in Northeast Wisconsin.
You make mention of TikTok, that there's some certainly concerns with that, and I know that you've raised your thoughts loud and clear concerning China, TikTok in particular. Have any of your fears been alleviated, or is there still so much that has to be addressed yet in your mind?
No, my concerns have increased, in part because of the aggressive and expensive lobbying campaign that TikTok has embarked on in Washington, D.C., an attempt to use the D.C. swamp against us to prevent us from taking necessary legislative action. I think we need to either ban TikTok or force a sale to an American company. We can't have a Chinese company, which is under the thumb of the Chinese Communist Party, control the algorithm. We can't have a Chinese company become the dominant media platform in America. They would use that power in order to divide us, in order to pit Americans against Americans, in order to feed us fake news. It would be a threat to every broadcasting industry and local entity in America. And so the time is now to take action. I'm working with my colleagues in the House to ensure that we have a smart, strong piece of legislation that comes out that either bans TikTok or forces a sale. We have a long way to go, but I'm hoping by having true experts like Commissioner Carr here that can speak directly to the people of Northeast Wisconsin, we start to get Americans to realize the threat posed by TikTok. It's not just about silly dance videos that your teenager is making. It's about the information we consume, our sense of national identity. It's about the integrity of information related to our elections. And so we need to take action before it's too late.
Okay, of course, the question on everybody's mind. Your assessment of last night's first debate down in Milwaukee.
Well, I watched it with great interest. I thought a lot of candidates did well. I thought Governor DeSantis did very well in particular. There wasn't as much focus on the national security issues, particularly China, the issues that I've been focused on. So hopefully in the next debate, there'll be more of a focus on China. I do think the issue of TikTok is one that should come up because it's complex. This issue of American investment in China is one that should come up. We didn't really get into the nitty-gritty of perhaps the most important issue, which is how do you rebuild the military so as to prevent a war with China. So hopefully there'll be time for that in subsequent national security focus debates. I would expect that the field would get smaller, but it's always good to have that lively exchange.
You made mention of Governor DeSantis. He was shining. Who came in as runner-up, in your view?
I thought Nikki Haley did very well and probably outperformed a lot of expectations. My wife in particular thought Nikki Haley did the best. And she had great answers on foreign policy and a variety of issues. Who else did well? Who would be another runner-up? Honestly, Governor Burgum actually had a lot of answers on China that were quite good. So I was glad to see him focus on that. Although hopefully he recovers from the ACL he tore playing basketball in Milwaukee, apparently.